swimming mermaid tail. It made me really, really happy at the time. We didn't know what a monofin was. Hello friends, Mermaid Megan here for day 11 of Vlogmas. And today we're talking about everything that is wrong with this. So, I don't think anyone has ever seen this. Maybe a few people have seen a picture of it, but this is the very first swimming mermaid tail that I ever had. My mom made this tail for me when I was in middle school. We don't need to talk about what years that was, but the mermaid community is nowhere near what it is now. There were not all of these different makers, and it was largely a DIY scene. She had made me some little costumes before then, but they were mermaid skirts, not full swimming tails. And I finally convinced her one summer to make me a tail to swim in our pool. And because my mother is a saint and supports me in all of my crazy dreams, she did. Now, I don't want to say any of this to sound like I'm complaining about what she did or try to put her down, because she did an awesome job doing what none of us knew anything about. And it made me really, really happy at the time to have this. But knowing what I know now, this is a nightmare. So the number one biggest issue with this tail is this right here. Do you see that? There's no monofin in here. There's nothing. And there are no zippers on the side. The end is not open. Well, it's a little open now because the stitches broke because this thing is very old. There's no way to even put a monofin in here. We didn't know what a monofin was. We didn't know you needed that. Luckily, the pool I was swimming in was only about 3.5 feet deep, and I was a very strong swimmer to begin with. So I'm okay, I'm still here. But I would never recommend that anybody do this, because this was an accident waiting to happen. It is a miracle that I never did run into any trouble with it. And that is solely because I was very lucky. I had taken a lot of swimming lessons and I was in a very shallow pool with supervision. But I basically just hopped and wiggled around in the pool in this because there's no way to put a monofin in it, and there never was a monofin in it. And that is a huge, huge safety issue. You cannot swim as a mermaid without a monofin. You have to have that propulsion, because when you're swimming with your legs together, you can't kick the way that you normally do when swimming, like front crawl, back crawl, any of that. And you can't separate your legs to climb out of the pool if you're in trouble. The other big issue with this tail is that because it was made out of a pretty cheap fabric, because we really only planned on it lasting that one summer, and that's really all that it did, it got really stretched out really quickly. So when I was in middle school, I was able to pull this up just about to my armpits, which is really not super safe, because if something had happened, it would have taken me a lot longer to get out of the tail and get to safety than if it fit properly at my waist. The elastic is also super crinkly and old, partially because it was in chlorine so much and partially just because of the age. But let me get a little closer to the microphone on this. Dried out elastic, that's great. My other gripe now about this tail is that this is not this is not a pattern I would ever choose nowadays. In middle school, I thought this thing was gorgeous. I loved the flowers and I still do love the colors. These are still my colors, but I would maybe not pick this particular fabric nowadays for a tail. I do want to take a moment to say that not all homemade tails are bad news. In fact, pretty much all of the tail makers that are out there started off doing what we would consider homemade tails nowadays. The problem with this one is the safety issue of not having a monofin in it, and me also really not properly knowing how to mermaid swim. Now, if I was going to make my own tail today, this is how I would change this guy to be something I could actually use. The first thing I would do would be to ditch the flowers for a mermaid scale print. I'm just not buying that a mermaid is out here swimming around with tie-dye and hibiscus flowers printed on. Now the flowers could be cute as an accent on a top, so maybe we could incorporate that, but as far as being on the tail, they gotta go. I would also want to pick a thicker fabric like scuba knit. That's what a lot of fabric tails are made out of. versus this really thin Lycra swim fabric. It just didn't age well and it got really stretched out. And there's also parts that are pretty faded. To be fair, I do think I left this outside in the pool for several days at times, so that's probably mostly on me. The last big change I would make would be to make it where I can put a monofin in. This is a pretty decent sized fluke for a beginner tail, but without a monofin, you can't swim. And it also looks really stupid on dry land because it's just a big bag of fabric flopping around where your feet are. Now, one of the monofins that I do recommend for beginners is the linden, which is what I use in my finfolk tail. It's not terribly off. If this had been made with a zipper or with an opening, you could maybe squeeze the linden in there, and then this would have been a much better beginner tail, as well as actually kind of sort of being safe to swim in instead of a lifeguard's worst nightmare. I'm actually a little tempted to see if I open up the fluke, if I could fit the linden in here. So let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that for a future video. I think it might be kind of fun for nostalgia's sake. Here is the one and only photo that I know of that proves that yes, I did wear this, and yes, it was from when I was in middle school. Don't worry, I did not swim up to that waterfall. I tied the tail around my waist, waded through the water, and climbed up on it, and then put the tail on these slippery moss-covered rocks. This is another one of those things that I'm like, it's kind of a miracle that I wound up okay. Again, friends, I don't want to discourage anyone from making a homemade tail, but do remember that your safety is the most important thing. If you're not putting a monofin in your mermaid tail and you plan on swimming, you're setting yourself up for some serious trouble. Just remember to be safe and have fun. Not just the fun part, because getting hurt isn't fun. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope it also inspires you to make some better mermaid choices than I did back in the day. Subscribe to my channel for more mermaid content and to follow along with the rest of my Vlogmas adventures. Like and comment on this video to let me know what sort of content you want to make. And if you're still here, tell me what your first mermaid tail looked like. I'll see you all next time. Bye!